Got to get to this one, Jason. The co-owner of the Seattle Storm now suspended and fined for antagonizing fans who were supporting WNBA player Sophie Cunningham. The fans held signs saying, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." The Seattle Storm co-owner left these fans in tears, attacking them for those signs. I mean, what kind of message does that send?
Well, the message it sends is the message they want to send. They're not welcome at Storm games, and they're not welcome in the WNBA.
Sophie Cunningham was like, hey,
God forbid
men's sports, girls play girls sports.
God forbid we actually support women and girls in sporting competitions. I know it's very crazy.
A Seattle Storm minority owner has now been disciplined after allegedly confronting two teenage girls for publicly supporting WNBA player Sophie Cunningham. And what makes this story even more striking is how Cunningham reacted after learning that a franchise owner had been suspended because of an argument over a simple fan sign. She could have celebrated the punishment, attacked the organization, or used the controversy to embarrass everyone involved. Instead, she answered with a message that made the league's handling of the situation look even colder by comparison. Cunningham wrote that she sincerely believes there should be love and a welcoming place for everyone, including biological girls, biological boys, transgender women, and transgender men. She said everyone has a seat at her table, and reminded people that disagreement does not require cruelty. She praised the girls for having the courage to express what they believed, promised that they would hear from her soon, hinted that gifts were coming, and then described the co-owner's behavior as deeply embarrassing and revealing of the kind of leadership she represents.
Another rally, another pro-women's rally in support of Sophie Cunningham, like there was outside of the game in Seattle. There's actually two more planned now. And all I've got to say is,
Tuesday evening in Seattle was supposed to center on basketball, with the Indiana Fever visiting the Seattle Storm for what appeared on the schedule to be an ordinary regular season matchup. But before either team took the floor and long before the opening tip, something much bigger than the game had already begun developing outside Climate Pledge Arena. A modest group of demonstrators gathered near the building, with some openly showing support for Sophie Cunningham and others connected to a Washington state ballot effort involving fairness in girls' athletic competition. The issue had already been gaining attention throughout the state, and Cunningham's recent comments had become intertwined with that broader political debate. So while the event was partly about one WNBA player and the reaction to her words, it was also connected to a policy battle that had been growing for several weeks. By the time fans entered the arena, the night was no longer simply about Indiana playing Seattle. It had become the latest stage for a cultural disagreement that was already building momentum well before the teams arrived.
You want to come in? She's covering your sign.
To understand why the atmosphere became so charged, you have to go back a little more than a week. Cunningham participated in an ESPN feature and was asked a direct question about whether girls' sports should be protected. She did not avoid the subject, change the topic, or hide behind a carefully rehearsed answer. She responded plainly to what she had been asked. She did not name a teammate, single out an opponent, or launch a personal attack against anyone in the league. It was simply her honest position delivered in response to a straightforward question. Yet that brief comment became the spark for nearly everything that followed. Once the clip spread across social media, people began attaching her answer to specific athletes, political movements, and controversies, regardless of whether Cunningham had intended to reference any of them. Different groups interpreted the statement through their own beliefs, assigned motives to her, and turned one sentence into a symbol for a much larger argument. What began as an athlete answering an interviewer quickly became something people across the internet wanted to claim, condemn, or defend.
This is WNBA star Sophie Cunningham. She recently voiced her opinion on trans women in sports, and it led to a courtside confrontation. So ESPN published an interview with Sophie earlier this month in which they explained that she is called MAG Barbie by some. She said that she got that title simply because of how she looks and where she's from, which is Missouri, but she described herself as in the middle politically. And then she got into talking about trans women in sports. And she said, I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans. And I'm like, I never once said that. She said, I think that I'm here to extend love, but I also think that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room or young girls in sports who shouldn't have to go against biological men. So that is the quote that gained a lot of attention. Her podcast co-host...
In a matter of days, the discussion moved almost completely beyond basketball. National outlets picked up the story, Television panels debated it during morning programming, and Cunningham's response became part of the kind of polarizing issue that travels far beyond the WNBA's normal audience. She never requested that level of exposure, and there is no indication she expected one answer from an ESPN interview to become a national political talking point. But once the attention arrived, she also refused to retreat simply because the pressure became uncomfortable. She did not issue an apology for expressing her opinion, pretend she had been misunderstood, or quietly abandon the subject in hopes that the controversy would disappear. That unwillingness to be intimidated helped keep the story alive and pushed it toward what unfolded in Seattle on Tuesday night. By then, every public appearance, every sign, and every reaction involving Cunningham carried far more meaning than it normally would. The arena became the place where weeks of growing resentment, support, activism, and media attention finally collided in person.
Well, we were just sitting there with our signs that said, like, we love Sophie, like, thank you, Sophie, for speaking up. And so we were holding on, just watching the game. Again, like, we were being super great. We hadn't said anything to anyone else. We were being super respectful. We were just holding our signs and cheering for both teams. And this lady, older lady, comes up to us. And she comes up to us, and at first I think she's going to be nice. And then she asks, like, what are you guys doing? Something like that. And then it was like, Jesus loves everyone. That's what she told us. And I was like, oh, I know. Like, I'm religious. Like, I know. Like, I know.
Nice.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, I hope Jesus can forgive you for what sin you've done. And like something like that. And then she told us that we were effing insane. And that we
And she's like, and she went like
Yes.
insane.
Yeah.
She's like, you better stop this.
And stop pulling
shit.
this. Yeah.
And
For you guys
I
to
hope
come
God
here
can
and
save
pull
you.
this. Yeah.
Inside the building, two teenage girls reached courtside seats, carrying a sign that said, "Thank you, Sophie, for speaking up for girls." That was the entire statement. There were no insults written on it, no player was attacked by name, and there was no threatening language. It was simply a message of appreciation directed toward Cunningham. According to the account the teenagers later shared with podcast host Brandy Cruz, a woman approached them during the game and described their shirts and their presence as insane. They said she told them that Jesus loves everyone, but then added that she hoped Jesus would forgive them for whatever sin they had committed. One of the girls explained that the exchange left her crying and deeply shaken before the game had even ended, because an evening she expected to be fun suddenly became hostile and intensely personal. Reports soon described the encounter as a Seattle Storm owner cursing at a teenage fan because of her pro-Cunningham sign. The girls were reportedly required to lower or remove their message, while another spectator displaying an opposing sign reading, "No hate in the United States," was allegedly permitted to continue holding it. The woman involved was identified as Celeste Keaton, a minority owner of the Storm. After Cruz posted the teenager's story the next day, it spread rapidly throughout WNBA social media. Cruz also said that when she attempted to involve arena security on the girls' behalf, she was instructed to contact the team's front office by email. Consider how inadequate that response sounds. Two teenagers were allegedly confronted and cursed at by an adult who owns part of the franchise. Yet the immediate solution offered inside the arena was essentially to submit a written complaint and wait for someone to respond later.
The question really is, what is it about you crazy-ass lesbian WNBA people that you hate kids? I mean, yesterday, the co-owner of whatever that team is called, the Seattle Storm, goes off, makes some little kids cry. Why? Because they're wearing a Sophie Cunningham jersey. So now we've got angry, big fat white lesbian women that have lost their minds, not only on Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, but on children. You know, you liberals, you love the mutilation of children. You want the mutilation of children. And now you just want to crush kids who are supporting, well, somebody that supported them in Sophie Cunningham.
That part of the story cannot be dismissed as a minor procedural mistake, because it reveals how little urgency anyone inside the building appeared to show while the incident was unfolding. The problem was not only that Keaton allegedly crossed a line in what she said to the girls, it was also that someone attempted to report the confrontation through the appropriate security channel at the exact time it was happening, and the situation still was not meaningfully addressed. There was reportedly no immediate apology, no visible attempt by arena employees to calm everyone down, and no staff member stepping in to ensure that the teenagers felt safe and supported. Instead, the matter was redirected toward an email inbox, as though two crying young fans being confronted at courtside represented an ordinary complaint about service, seating, or concessions. An incident involving a franchise owner and minors required an immediate human response, not an administrative instruction for later. Even had the details initially been unclear, arena personnel could have separated the individuals, spoken to witnesses, checked on the girls, and documented what happened. The fact that the first reported response was essentially contact the office is one reason the backlash intensified once the public learned about it.
Breaking news, Storm co-owner Celeste Keaton
was fined and suspended from attending the next 5 home games of the Seattle Storm following the incident with Fever fans last night, in which she made a comment about one of their players' supporters. That came directly from the league. So that's the latest on this developing story. So there it is.
By Thursday, the pressure had become too large for the WNBA to ignore, and the league announced disciplinary action against Keaton. She received an undisclosed fine and was prohibited from attending the Storm's next 5 home games. That is a legitimate penalty, and it would be inaccurate to claim the league did absolutely nothing. Still, the sequence of events deserves scrutiny. The confrontation occurred during Tuesday night's game. By Wednesday, the girls' account and public discussions surrounding the incident were already spreading widely. The Storm released a statement that avoided naming Keaton, and the league did not officially announce the suspension and fine until Thursday. For an incident that went national at remarkable speed, the response from an organization capable of acting quickly when it chooses to do so did not feel especially urgent. The delay gave the impression that officials were measuring the scale of public anger before deciding how firmly to respond. Discipline eventually arrived, but it followed viral attention, media criticism, and mounting reputational pressure rather than a transparent statement issued immediately after the organization learned what had allegedly occurred.
This for these Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark fans. I don't think that's enough. She needs to get in front of a damn microphone and podium and camera and apologize to those young girls that she made cry for no reason. And she needs to get on camera and talk about what she's gonna do to shore up the security to make sure that fans of the opposing teams don't get spit in the face. That is what she needs to do. This is not.
Many people also believe the punishment did not go far enough, and the wording of Seattle's apology helps explain why. Majority owner Ginny Gilder said the organization was aware that one of its co-owners had made comments to 2 fans attending the previous night's game. She apologized that the interaction happened and stated that every person attending a Storm game should feel welcome, adding that the franchise remains committed to an inclusive environment where fans are treated respectfully. On the surface, that sounds responsible, but look at everything the statement leaves out. Keaton is never identified by name. The alleged language directed toward the teenagers is not described. The power difference between an adult team owner and 2 young fans is not acknowledged, and the statement appeared only after significant online pressure made silence increasingly difficult. Had Brandi Cruz never shared what the girls told her, it is reasonable to wonder whether the public would ever have learned about the confrontation at all. Keaton might have remained courtside without her name ever being connected to a consequence. Cunningham's reaction is where the contrast becomes impossible to miss. She did not demand that Keaton lose her ownership stake, encourage harassment, or respond with rage. She said there should be care and room for everyone, including people on every side of the disagreement. At the same time, she clearly stated that the treatment of the girls was unacceptable and reflected poorly on the co-owner responsible. She then promised to contact the teenagers and send them gifts, transforming a humiliating experience into an opportunity to make them feel recognized. That gesture matters because news cycles disappear quickly, but the memory of being publicly confronted as a teenager can last much longer. Cunningham used her platform to ensure those girls did not feel abandoned once the cameras and social media attention moved elsewhere.
Women, biological women, belong in women's sports, not men who call themselves women. It's very, very simple. And then she doubled down. And what happened? Within the next 48 hours, all of her shoes sold out. They were already, I think, well on their way, but they were all gone, men's and women's sizes, in an hour. Her jersey now is the second top, best-selling jersey in the league, behind who? Her teammate Caitlin Clark.
The measured nature of Cunningham's response helps explain why public support for her has expanded since the incident. Former ESPN host Sage Steele openly defended the teenagers and joined a growing number of commentators arguing that the confrontation exposed a serious failure by Storm ownership. Earlier remarks from the White House press secretary had already framed Cunningham as taking a position that many Americans share, showing how far this story had moved beyond the boundaries of professional basketball. It was no longer a niche dispute among WNBA fans or a temporary argument on social media. It had become part of a national discussion involving sports, sex-based competition, political identity, free expression, and the way institutions treat people who challenge prevailing views. Cunningham did not need to become louder or more aggressive to keep the controversy alive. In fact, her calm approach arguably created more pressure on her critics than an angry rant would have. She remained as direct as she had been during the original ESPN interview, repeated the substance of her belief without retreating, and still emphasized compassion toward people who disagree. That balance is uncommon in public controversies. It is also why some people who may not completely share her position have nevertheless expressed respect for the discipline and grace she has shown while facing intense scrutiny.
A little bit hostile, but they did it anyway. Why? Because they witnessed somebody like Sophie Cunningham have the courage to stand tall for truth and science and facts. I want us to remember the irony of this video right now, and of certainly Celeste Keaton coming up and dropping F-bombs on these young women.
The apparent double standard surrounding the game is another reason this controversy has continued to grow. Storm center Stephanie Dawson entered the same arena wearing a shirt that said, "Trans rights are human rights." No one stopped her, publicly reprimanded her, or suggested she had no right to display that message. Nor should they have. Dawson is entitled to express her beliefs, and she should be free to wear that shirt without being harassed. But that principle must apply consistently. 2 teenage spectators silently held a sign thanking a visiting player, yet they were allegedly confronted by a member of the home team's ownership group and described as insane in the middle of a crowded arena. That invites an unavoidable question. When one political message is accepted without incident, while a mild expression of support for the opposing position results in young fans being confronted by ownership, what does that reveal about the culture of the organization? Seattle's public apology and the league's decision to suspend and fine one of the team's co-owners confirmed that this was not merely an invented controversy. Something serious enough to require formal discipline happened, and it appears that nobody with authority intervened effectively while it was taking place. Only after the story went viral, national coverage followed, and public pressure built for roughly 2 days did officials deliver a clear consequence. That does not look like proactive accountability. It looks like an organization that acted only after being placed in a position where continued inaction would have created even greater damage.
Coach, there was a rally before the game, an anti-trans rally before the game, inspired by Sophie Cunningham. As a member of the LGBTQ+ community, how did you receive her comments and the way it ignited the right-wing and anti-trans supporters? And for the players, have you had conversations in the locker room about it?
I'll jump in on that. We do have an organizational statement. I'll read. So neither our organization nor Sophie had any knowledge of this demonstration and no contact with its organizers. Our only goal as a team, whether at home or away, is to win basketball games and make Fever fans for life, and we're united on that mission. Do we have any more basketball questions?
The league office and the Indiana Fever also deserve criticism for the way they handled the immediate aftermath. When reporters raised questions following the game, Fever head coach Stephanie White declined to address the incident. Indiana's public relations staff then delivered a prepared statement saying neither Cunningham nor the organization had prior knowledge of the demonstration and that they had not communicated with its organizers. The statement emphasized that the team's focus remained on winning basketball games. While it may have been important to clarify that Indiana did not organize or coordinate the event, that answer avoided the more immediate concern. 2 fans were allegedly mistreated while publicly supporting a player on the Fever roster. The response also left other Indiana players dealing with questions about a controversy they had not created and that was unrelated to their performance on the court. Even supporters of Cunningham can reasonably argue that the organization's silence created a vacuum that outside voices were forced to fill. A simple statement condemning the harassment of young fans would not have required the team to endorse every political opinion represented outside the arena. Instead, the Fever distanced themselves from the demonstration without directly addressing the reported treatment of the teenagers. That choice fits the larger pattern surrounding this entire episode. The WNBA, the Storm, and the Fever repeatedly appeared to be reacting to events rather than offering clear leadership. Seattle produced a vague apology, the league took days to formalize discipline, and Indiana limited access and avoided direct comment. None of those decisions made the league appear confident or in command of the situation.
It is always the people who preach love and inclusion, who think they are morally superior, who are the most detestable, hateful bigots on the planet. If I have learned anything in the last 5 years, I have learned that.
Man, Brandy Cruz went crazy. Undivided with Brandy Cruz. You listen, you got something over there. She's damn good. She came out and exposed this owner. And the WNBA had to do something. They had to do something. Those little girls who got yelled at and cursed out and all of this, they were with her. It just so happens that she knew how to get it out there.
Instead, the entire sequence made the WNBA look like an institution that had to be pushed toward the correct response only after online outrage became impossible to disregard. Other professional sports leagues have often acted within hours when viral incidents involving spectators, employees, or team officials emerge. In this case, there was public testimony from the two teenagers, accounts from people attempting to assist them, and an identified co-owner whose involvement was widely known by Wednesday. Yet confirmation of meaningful punishment did not arrive until Thursday. Once the political noise is removed, that delay and the contrast in behavior reveal the central story. Sophie Cunningham did not seek out this confrontation. She answered a question honestly during an interview weeks earlier, and when the consequences of that answer reached two young supporters in Seattle, she responded without bitterness or cruelty. The Storm eventually apologized. The league fined and suspended one of the franchise's owners. National figures weighed in, and the controversy grew far beyond a single basketball game. Through all of it, Cunningham emerged looking more composed than nearly every institution around her. She never shouted, demanded pity, or turned the teenager's experience into a performance centered on herself. She simply stood by her position, condemned the way the girls were treated, welcomed disagreement without endorsing hostility, and promised to make two humiliated young fans feel remembered rather than discarded.